Okay, he's joining now.
Okay. Sorry, we tend to start very much on time, so. There we go. Art, I just did a very, very brief intro just as far as the engagement that we're trying to connect with all the residents and people in the city.
Yeah, I heard it. I heard it. Yeah, I wasn't a panelist, and for some reason the panelist invite either didn't get me to me the first time or did not, but I saw it the second time I got there, so I heard everything you said.
Okay, there you go.
So inherently what we're trying to accomplish here, and I think I'm going to try to tee this up for the group from Academica and give them an opportunity to sort of present a little bit about their plan. But from a background perspective, I want everybody to have a sense of a little bit of the history of the building and how we got here. This building has been primarily under the stewardship of the city in some capacity since the 70s. Primarily through an agency that I used to run, which was the Miami Parking Authority, was the managing entity. That was done through an agreement by the prior owner, Maurice Gusman, who's the namesake of the building. And as a result, MPA had it for a number of years, managed it under really what was still ownership by the city of Miami property. So the parking authority didn't own the building, the city did. And as a result, has been managing the physical building. The tower in and of itself originally housed a number of city departments, and then was converted to affordable housing through a tax credit program in the early to mid 90s. As a result, the tower stayed in that capacity really up until about roughly 10 years ago, when the compliance period expired. The theater has been running and operated as a theater, since its inception. Obviously, it was originally a movie house. Has operated as a still under the one of its programming options has been obviously the show of movies still through the film festival and whatnot, but primarily as a music venue, and it has continued its operation over the years. But what has happened in probably the last 10 to 15 years is that the physical decline of the building will be 100 years old next year, early next year, has really started to accelerate. And the city has for a while, and we even issued one RFP to try to solicit some interest in an operating entity and somebody that would invest capital in the building. Unfortunately, it was not successful, and partly because the capital needs of the theater are so great that we were at a point where we have been kind of at this point rethinking what the operational plan should be going forward, now that the building was returned back into the stewardship of the city proper. As part of that, and as an ongoing sort of side, I'll call it impact, a more recent impact, the city was sued by the Gusman heirs, specifically for what in essence their eyes, the desire to have the operation of the theater fall in line with what the Maurice Gusman's original intent was. We've been litigating that for a while, but what that did was it sort of, I think, through outside conversations from Academica and the family, more casual in nature, I think, it caused Academica and Miami-Dade College to some extent, as a result, really kind of, I think, do a little bit of more superficial but due diligence to gauge the city's interest, and thus had approached the mayor several months ago with the idea of activating the theater and the building for primarily an educational use, and in turn they would invest all of the capital needs or all of the dollars required to historically renovate the theater to its original, glory and status, bring the building back up and compliant with its 40, 50-year recertification, and convert the tower and retail for educational purposes. It's a pretty significant capital investment. The opportunity would have presented what in essence is zero obligation or liability on the city's part financially. It would really put it in the hands of two entities that we feel have a incredibly robust and proven track record in academic, obviously in the college as well, and as a secure the future of the building, out 40, 50 years, and really preserve this incredible jewel we have in downtown Miami. The rough outline of what is being proposed is that the theater would transfer in title to Academica. They have all of the repairs required to comply with a very robust historic preservation scope, which was generated by the architect of record for Olympia, which is Richard Heisenbottom. That scope would have to be adhered to. It is an absolute requirement, and would be incorporated into reverter language if they are not compliant within a certain period of time. Another aspect of compliance is a settlement of the litigation with the Gusman family. And third is a commitment and a codified agreement between Academica and Miami-Dade College, which would represent and solidify each individual entity's role going forward with regards to programming and operation of the theater. All of those are conditions, what we call conditions precedent to the execution of the purchase and sale agreement, and subsequently the transfer to the new entity. That kind of is a prelude of what the plan is. Academic can go into a little more detail in terms of what their specific plan is, both on the immediate and interim phases, and then obviously Miami-Dade College, if they're also participating, could also give some context and some color to their role as well. Outside of that, I don't know if there's anything else, Commissioner, you wanted me to add. Did I miss anything?
No, I wasn't sure if we had Miami-Dade College on this call, like we did on previous conversations. Are they expected? Do you guys know? I'm going to turn it over to Academica now, and then Richard Heisenbottom can add as far as the plan for restoration. And I think it's important for people to understand, and maybe Art, you can add a little bit on this, why we are where we are right now. I mean, I have not seen any detailed anything. There isn't any transaction. The way this came about, I think, has caused people a little bit of alarm, as well as like, why is it being rushed? I mean, these are kind of like the questions we're getting in our office. Maybe you could just touch base on that a little bit.
Sure. The timing of this, I know to many will feel, probably a lot quicker than most would expect, especially in normal public processes. And it's a little bit expedited in part because I think everybody's goal and intent was to try to get some activation of the building from an educational perspective for the new school year, and that's really why the timing was kind of accelerated for purposes of getting it to the commission for approval as part of the resolution, and then authorizing us to enter into a PSA obviously under certain guidelines, very specific guidelines and requirements. We're doing this entire process. There's a section of the code and the charter that requires specific parameters around how you dispose of property, and it allows for transfer of property if it meets the definition of a public purpose. Obviously, education certainly falls into that definition. Most cases when there's been transactions like this, They don't necessarily involve some of the financial parameters that this one does. I mean, this building obviously has a significant current financial liability, which is the restoration of the theater and the compliance with the 4050 recertification. That's probably anywhere from 35 to $40 million in total in terms of cost. And so, from a city perspective, and you know, the mayor's vision on this, having had the preliminary contact both with Academica and Miami-Dade College, was, you know, we've unfortunately been in this sort of gray neutral area when it comes to the theater in terms of, you know, this kind of clear definition of a catch-22, which you have this wonderful property but no real resources available to meet the required needs, and the capital needs here are significant, right? And so, you know, different from when you're just transferring it to, let's say, a developer. Let's say if somebody had come to us, and I've had multiple ideas and visions presented to me over the course of my time, both in my prior job and this one, but all that required really the city to stroke a very large check to make happen. So although they were, most of them to private entities, they really required a heavy government subsidy. And this requires zero tax dollars, zero obligation or sacrifice in terms of the taxpayers or the property owners for that matter. And I think we're putting in the hands of what I feel are good stewards of the building, and those that have the resources, of which unfortunately, you know, we've never had access to the kind of resources to make the long-term viability of this theater anything that we could guarantee. And so I think both of these entities have that capacity and that capability and have a track record. So that's kind of how we got there. We've been kind of wallowing in this unfortunate, gray area with a theater that continues to deteriorate, and we're, you know, kind of we're you know, keeping it put together with Band-Aids and Elmer's glue, and really requires the kind of investment that I think these two groups they're certainly committed to it, and they certainly have the resources to do so.
Thank you, Mr. Manager and District Commissioner. This is Julio Robaina, Chief Operating Officer for Academica. I'm going to turn it over, if you don't mind, now, Commissioner, to Millie Sanchez, that represents Sports Leadership, Arts and Management, SLAM Foundation. And so I'm going to turn it over to Millie.
Good evening. You may see on your screen that my name is Adriana Lima. I am not the model Adriana Lima by any means. We're just in the middle of a storm here, and our power went out, so I'm actually using a colleague's computer. So my name is actually Millie Sanchez, as Julio mentioned. I am the Chief Administrative Officer for the SLAM Network of Schools, and I really want to kind of, before we get into the detail, I'd like to actually ask Fernando, who I see is on the call, to share with us how we got here and how we got to the table and how this collaboration came about. And then I'd like to kind of share the document and some information with you. But Fernando, can you kind of enlighten us a little bit about how we got?
Absolutely. Thank you, Adriana Lima. And I'd like to thank the Commissioner Pardo, for hosting this meeting. That's first time I've done a public Zoom meeting like this. We do a lot of them because all our meetings are public, as well as on the charter networks, but I've never had one with the municipality. I think it's a wonderful idea. I'm glad to see more than 200 people already online participating. So it's actually quite helpful that they get to do so from the comfort of their homes and still participate in the public discourse. And by the way, this is a personal project. I've sat in the Olympia Theater more times than I can count, for graduations, performances, music, movies, concerts, including The Police back in 1979. So it's been a lot of events. I have 4 daughters. All of them have danced on that stage in numerous annual recitals. So it's a place that's dear to my heart. And never did I expect that I'd be contacted by, of all people, the Gusman family several months ago. and they wanted to meet. And they wanted to meet because they had litigation pending with the city I was unaware of, and they were seeking to recover the Olympia Theater and the facility, the entire facility, because they felt it wasn't obviously it wasn't being used right. The building was mothballed, and the facility, the theater itself, was being used, but it was falling into disrepair, and there was a notice or something on the building saying it was even potentially at risk of demolition if it didn't get repaired further. They wanted to meet. I didn't know why. They asked to meet at one of our schools. We hosted them at Matter Brickle Academy, which is that really cool building that lights up at night on I-95. Most people in Miami know it already. And it does changes lights based on events like breast cancer awareness and other events in the city. And it's a place where they wanted to meet to see what we're doing. They'd heard about the work we've done with charter schools in the city, and they wanted to visit some of the facilities we work with. We met with Mr. Bruce Guzman, who's the eldest of the grandchildren, and they explained that their grandfather, Maurice Guzman, had donated the theater to the city back in 1974, I think, and that they were currently in litigation seeking to recover the ownership due to the issues we just talked about, and you just heard the manager explain. They were looking for a solution, however, and one that would honor the legacy of their grandfather, as well as continue to keep this as a public cultural institution to serve the people of Miami. They had heard of the work we'd done by creating some of the city's most successful public charter schools. And they wanted to see whether there was some way we could breathe new life into the Olympia by bringing an educational use that could be compatible with the theater, the separate theater use. After touring MBA, we took them over to SLAM, which is our downtown arts and sports focused academy, where Millie Sanchez is the executive director of. And after they completed their due diligence, they asked us to consider to take on this challenge. They believed that if we do so, because of the work we've already done, and they knew that we could handle the development aspects of it, we built facilities for tens of thousands of students in our city. They also believed that by doing what we could bring to the table would also honor that legacy of their grandfather and allow them to settle the litigation. And that was the goal. If the litigation continues, and that's one of the items the manager mentioned, there are hearings pending that could throw this into another level of uncertainty beginning as early as this fall. So that's part of the urgency here. It's not so much urgency as the need to deal with the timetable that the litigation imposes on this, as well as the needs of activating this for some educational purposes as early as this September when school starts again. So I met with the leadership of our school networks, of several of our networks, Matter Academy, whom you know has that school along the Brickell corridor, Somerset Academy, which is also here in South Miami and elsewhere in Miami, and SLAM, to see their interest. And we did our research, we came together, we looked at the history, and we thought of, well, what can we do? And we all concurred this is a project worth undertaking, and one that's definitely within the capacity and abilities of these organizations collaborating together. What we would do is repurpose the 10-story office building next to the theater. And this has never really operated in true synergy with the theater, and this would allow it for the first time to do so into one vertical urban school campus. Not unlike what we're already working at. We've got SLAM is a vertical urban campus, so is MBA, and we currently have a great partnership with the city of Miami and Miami-Dade College at the Wolfson campus nearby at Building 5, where you have the New World School of the Arts operating. And there we have Miami Innovation Academy, which we did pursuant to an RFP the city issued several years ago, and we were selected to operate an Innovation Academy, MIA, in the downtown Miami area together with Miami-Dade College. And it's been a success. The only impediment we have there is that because we share space with the also successful New World School of the Arts, we don't have an ability to grow the program yet. So the advent and the opportunity to do something at the Olympia Theater completely changed our ability and timetable in being able to serve students and provide terribly needed student stations in the inner core. What we can do then is repurpose the 10-story building for classrooms, for laboratories, for studios, and the future facing programs in technology, media, and the arts. This would continue to operate as Miami Innovation Academy, but as I believe it was the mayor who came up with the idea when I contacted him after the meeting with the Gusmans. I said, look, we could come over to the theater facility, bring this 10-story building that's currently mothballed back into service. We could provide student stations that are desperately needed in the inner core for more students, and we could do so with the Miami Innovation and Arts Academy. And that is focusing on the arts, but mostly on technology in the arts, on entrepreneurship in the arts. And these are programs we are already doing. The 3 networks I mentioned all have award-winning, nationally recognized arts programs that they have developed. And we're working with community partners right now and have for decades, including, for example, at SLAM, we operate the SLAM radio station, which is the only student-operated Sirius XM station in the country. The facility is amazing that they have over at SLAM. It's a full functioning radio station with also live streaming capability. It's where Pitbull also does his Positive to Negative podcast. It's where the U.S. Secretary of Education visited a few weeks ago and was on air. It's where, honestly, we're just about anybody that comes to Miami, including Kanye West and other and Tony Robbins and other celebrities and individuals in the arts and in media and in technology, come and visit to see the students at work in a fully functioning radio station. We also have a partnership with Telemundo, and when they established their new headquarters in Doral several years back, they asked us to establish Telemundo Academy, and we did so, and that's been 6 years also operating now. And that is a media and technology focused academy where hundreds of students currently participate from multiple school networks to see real life television being developed at the largest Hispanic television backlot in the world, according to Telemundo, and that's the Telemundo headquarters out west. So this would be another location where we would hub the Telemundo Academy activities. We also have partnerships with other organizations in the area like farm stores and SBE Group in the food service industry, where we can provide the ability for students to see how that comes into play in an environment like the Olympia Theater. So the goal isn't to burden the theater with school activities, far from that. The school activities would take place in the 10-story building next door. The theater, however, would continue to operate as it has for the past 100 years. What we would want is for it to be fully restored and to operate with the programming that's been successful there all these years, including Miami-Dade College's Miami Film Festival, their book fair, and other activities that the college is hosting downtown. As you know, the college is probably the largest resident in downtown Miami insofar as one organization there, and it's done a marvelous job. They're hosts to our MIA program, and the part of the partners that we do in that with their dual enrollment program, and they would continue that service here at the 10-story building, where they would offer a complete dual enrollment program so that the students that are studying there in high schools will be graduating with career and technical education credit, as well as college credit and college degrees from this unique location. So this is an opportunity to really do something that's never been done yet, which is to bring these public charter school organizations partnering together with our downtown public college, Miami-Dade College, and providing an arts and innovation technology program that's hasn't been witnessed anywhere in the country. I need to be emphatic about one point. This isn't an empty promise based on the need for us to go out and raise funds. These three networks that I'm mentioning currently have close to $200 million in federal grants that have been awarded to them the last 4 years simply for the purpose of having them replicate and expand their activity in the nation. They are considered among the highest performing charter school networks in the nation. They serve populations that are overwhelmingly composed of students from low-income families. They are in our community right now, walking distance from this location. So it is an enormously positive opportunity that they not only have the academic credentials to undertake this, but they also have the financial wherewithal and capacity to redevelop, repurpose, and restore this great asset. And as you very well know, Commissioner and Mr. Manager, you've been holding our feet to the fire in the agreement we have with you, where we're obligating ourselves to do exactly what I just mentioned, but doing so with an enormous investment that will range likely up as much as $50 million. And that will be occurring in the coming years as we tackle different portions of the facility and restore it. And we're working with your architect, Richard Heisenbottle, who has been working at this facility or familiar with this facility and has been involved with it for almost 3 decades, if not more. And therefore, we're completely happy with the work that's happened, the guidance he's provided us with the type of improvements that need to occur. And we have the ability to do so immediately and need to, I believe, because you've got this litigation looming, which in and of itself is a cloud on the title and prevents anybody, including other folks out there that have been wanting to do other projects in connection with this. They can't invest a dime in it until we settle this litigation. And we have a willing partner with the Gussmans to do so, assuming 2 things. One, that we meet their requirements and that we commit ourselves to doing the type of improvements we've mentioned and deliver a program that is truly for the benefit of the public. And that's what these schools have been doing and what Miami-Dade College has been doing for the entirety of their existence. So this is not a giveaway, it's not a handout, it's a public benefit project. It's being done by public institutions for the benefit of the public, committing themselves without asking the taxpayers to put up 1 dime to restore this building to its former glory, to do so on the eve of its 100th anniversary. So that's another reason not to wait and to not allow it to fall into the type of problems and disrepair we've seen with some of the other historical assets in the city. We have a lot of folks that are willing to give their opinions and criticize and claim a lot of things in this, but none of them are willing to step up with the amount of money or the track record, any track record whatsoever, to demonstrate that they have the capacity or wherewithal to do this. So this is an opportunity we take very seriously. It's a challenge, but it's a challenge we've met time and again. And, you know, and we heard it at the commission meeting. Other commissioners have said, look, they weren't happy we hadn't talked to them. Well, we're talking to everyone now. We're grateful to you for putting this public forum together and allowing us to explain what it is we'd like to do, how we'd like to do it, and what we're willing to commit to. So this is it. This is the public forum. We're looking forward to input from the public, to answering your questions to the best of our ability. And sure, it's a work in progress. This doesn't end when you authorize the manager to move ahead. It's simply authorizing him to move ahead with a transaction that will take weeks or months to conclude. And that's perfectly okay. We can operate there with the initial program before we conclude some of these other things. And we don't need to occupy the entire facility. We're nearby. Like I said, we're walking distance from the facility right now with our MIA program, and just a few blocks further with Matter Brickle Academy. So we're going to be able to begin breathing life into this facility, put a fishbowl type slam radio station and Telemundo Academy facility in one of those storefronts so that the public can enjoy and watch the kids doing their job and doing a great job at it. So it's something that it will be a work in progress. We expect you to hold our feet to the fire, but you've done it before. That's why you have the schools you have in your district, and you have them all over Miami. It's schools we've helped develop over the years, and we're willing to do that again with this opportunity. Again, I thank you for the opportunity. I'd like Millie, I believe, some slides.
Fern,
yes.
I think it's important, just to follow up on your words. Tim Barquette is a panelist. He represents the Gusman family. And before we pass it over to Millie, I think it's timely for him to provide a statement to the public. Tim?
Well, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Sure.
Okay, well, thank you. And I want to thank the commissioner for putting this on, and the city manager who's been working hard with the school and the Gusman family. Much of what I had prepared to say tonight has already been said. Maurice Gusman donated this building in 1975, and we have just watched it go downhill from there. There's been some great events in there over the years. In 2011, when the Miami Parking Authority gave this building up back to the city of Miami, a man named Herman Echeverria, a private group, came in, and Robert Gusman at the time worked with Mayor Regalado to try to get that going, and that failed when Herman unfortunately passed away early. But eventually, after seeing scaffolding and the facades falling off in 2019, we filed our first lawsuit. And I'm not going to bore everyone with the details of our lawsuit. We have 2 lawsuits against the city regarding this, and we are so pleased today. I know many of the Gusman family is on this podcast today, that the mayor, the manager, and the commission are considering giving this to the school. And I want to rest everybody assured that, like Fernando said, we need to sign off on this. And there's nothing better for us, and we have not come up with a better idea than civic philanthropy, which is right up Maurice Gusman's alley. This would be used for a school, with Miami-Dade, with SLAM. You heard all of the great things that Fernando said about SLAM, and I wrote them down, and he missed a lot. And they have affiliations with the NBA, with Major League Baseball, the Marlins, NBC Universal. There's 13 high schools. The last 2 years, SLAM high schools have gotten A's from Florida Department of Education. We have done our work. We have fought tirelessly for the last 6 years, and we finally are getting the attention that this jewel of Miami deserves. And I call it the jewel because that's what Maurice called it. And aside from all the wonderful academic things that it's going to do for Miami, the shows at night, bringing 1,700 people downtown, drivers, the restaurants, the businesses. I myself have had my law office downtown Miami for over 30 years, and I promise you, if we could all come together and put this together, this will be the turning point of downtown Miami. It will be the jewel of Miami again, which would help revitalize. And if anybody's been to Flagler Street in the last 20 years, everyone knows that it needs to be revitalized. So with that said, I'd like to assure everybody that the Gusman family is not only committed to continuing with our lawsuit until we are totally satisfied that the city of Miami will require Academia or SLAM Academy to do all the great things that will preserve the Maurice Gusman Cultural Center for the Performing Arts, also known as the Olympia Theater. So I don't want to take a lot of time, but thank you. And I hope everyone understands that we are going to work with the mayor and the manager and the commissioners to make sure that we're not going to be dealing with this anymore. We've been dealing with this since 2011 when the Parking Authority turned it over to the City of Miami Commission. So the family is looking for the operators. I think we found them on our own. We brought them to the city, and it's just a matter of everyone working together to make this a really incredible opportunity.
Thank you, Tim, and appreciate the working together with you and the family, and we're committed to getting this done and coming to an agreement, and obviously that's one of the conditions that the manager and the commission have put forward. So,
and can I just say one more thing while we're on the subject?
Go ahead, Tim.
A lot of people have come forward. A lot of people have tried. I've heard some wonderful ideas about building on top of it and building hotels and building art galleries. You know, the city, contrary to what we wanted, in August of 2022, put out an RFP. And that lasted till January of 2023. Not one person came forth with a legitimate idea. There wasn't one RFP, there wasn't one proposal submitted. When I brought this to Fernando, within weeks, dollars were committed, people were committed. It is truly amazing how fast they have worked. And I know that has upset a lot of people because we bring a relatively new idea to the commission really fast. But I can assure everybody the manpowers and the resources that they have brought to the table to satisfy us and the commission up to now has been incredible. So I'm truly appreciative of their efforts.
Thank you, Tim. As Fernando alluded, we're doers. We're not sitting around talking. We're about doing things and getting them done and showing. So without further ado, now I see that Millie now has sat herself, got her internet up and running, and so I see members of the SLAM committee there, and I see Miriam Ramos. So Millie, go ahead.
Thank you. Well, thank you again, Mr. Burkett, for joining and giving that statement, and Fernando for kind of painting the picture of how we got to the table. And you guys have done such a great job. I feel like I don't need to do a presentation about what the group really collab is. But just for the people listening in, just to kind of clarify some of those points, I do want to go through that a little bit about what we're going to cover today. So I am joined by a group here, our staff from our vice chair from SLAM, as well as Miriam, who you'll get to hear from in a few minutes. But first, I want to kind of just show you what we wanted to cover and kind of go through each point that's been discussed so far. And I think it's fair to first start for those of the public that's not on the call or that's listening in to understand the history behind the theater. I know some of it has been already covered, but just to kind of understand over the last 100 years what has transitioned. So I'm going to turn it over to Miriam from Holland and Knight for that.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. And so we wanted to kind of paint a picture, and some of it has already been mentioned, but you know, seeing it always is very, very helpful. So essentially, there were 4 periods to this theater's kind of history, right? The initial period was from 1924 to 1970. It was actually owned by the Publix Theater Corporation, and yes, that is the Publix that we shop at. It started as a theater corporation, which shocked me, frankly, when I did the research. But it opened its doors in 1926. It was the first air-conditioned theater of the South. It drew, at the time, what was very popular vaudeville performances. And, of course, notably in 1956, Elvis performed. And in the 50s and 60s, people like B.B. King and Gypsy Rose Lee, etc. In 1970, Maurice Gussman buys the theater, hearing that it might be torn down. It's renovated by Florence Lapidus of Miami Beach at what was estimated at the time around $5 million. And it reopened in October of 1972. At that time, Mr. Gussman felt that the Philharmonic Orchestra would be a good steward of the theater. And it's donated to the Greater Miami Philharmonic Orchestra in 72, but after just 3 years, the orchestra gives it back to Mr. Gussman and says, we don't have the wherewithal to manage this theater. And so at that point in 1975, it is deeded to the city of Miami for administration by the Miami Parking Authority, which was then known as the Off-Street Parking District. It was designated historic by the city of Miami in 1983, and it was added to the National Register of Historic Places in 1984. It remains one of 3 what are called atmospheric theaters in the state of Florida. But what that showed was that essentially in those 4 periods, a lot of the things that we're seeing today existed then. The inability to maintain, the inability to update properly, etc. And so the idea that this has just happened now and that it's been rushed and there's so many options that we're not considering is really not accurate when you look at what's happened over time. And Mr. Barquette actually mentioned that there was an RFP put out by the city very recently that went nowhere. We saw many examples of this over the years. In 2011, the city commission transferred the administration to the nonprofit run by Herman Echeverria, which was mentioned before, and ultimately it was returned to the city for the same reason: they couldn't manage it. They didn't have the wherewithal. In 2017, Related Urban Development Group LLC submitted a proposal for a public-private partnership. They wanted to remodel 73 apartment units and put capital improvements into the theater. That did not go anywhere. Subsequent year, 2018, the City Commission discussed a partnership with the college, which is very much a partner with us today, but they did not have, still do not have, at the time, $26 million, today more like 30 to 50 million, to be able to put into the theater and then to maintain it in perpetuity. In August of that same year, the building is in such disrepair that the city of Miami itself has to issue a repair or demolish order. The following year, in 2019, New Urban International submits a proposal to redevelop the units into a hotel and make improvements to the theater. That also did not come to fruition. And of course, it's important to note that making the theater a hotel really separates it from the public use, which is exactly what we want to see for it. And in 2023, there was an idea for a hotel jazz club, again, no financial backing or conveyance authority. So many, many, many things have been tried before getting to this point, and that is really, really important to keep in mind as we move forward.
Thank you, Miriam. As you can see from the history, the theater has been in both public and private hands over the years. And like everyone has mentioned, those prior efforts to reprogram, revitalize the Olympia to once again that cultural and arts icon have been unsuccessful. What we want to share with you this evening is how this project is different from everything that has been tried in the past. We have a shared vision with many of you on the call of saving this theater, and that's a misconception that we want to clear up today. We're not turning it into a school. There will be a school in the adjacent building that will actually ignite. It will be the engine to help run and ignite the cultural programming that will be open to the public in the theater, and that I think is the shared mission here from everyone on this call. So how are we going to do that? Our goal is to ensure the preservation of that theater for generations to come. It's a preservation with purpose, and that's why we named our presentation, our Instagram app, because that is the goal, to have a purpose beyond, so that this is sustainable for years to come. So the goal is that the theater remains, it maintains its identity, but for the first time in 100-year history, what we're proposing to do is that the theater and the adjoining 10-story facility, the building, can operate synergistically as one cohesive center, and that hasn't happened. But doing that and saving the theater comes at a cost. So when we say we're giving this to Simon for free, I want to be clear that there are costs involved in the repair. So I'd like to introduce Rolando. I know he's on the call. He's not with us, our architect, and I know he's been working closely with the architects here in terms of the preservation. But Rolando, if you could just kind of go over the scope of this project and the investment that not just SLAM, but SLAM and our group, and I'll get into who that group is, are committed to making for these repairs.
Absolutely, Millie, thank you. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
I'm not sure if you could see me, but because I can't see where you might be able to see me, but I think the camera's working. So thank you for the opportunity. My name is Rolando Llanes. I'm principal with Civica Architecture. We have been in in existence since 2004, and primarily our work centers on educational facilities for almost over 20 years now. In addition to that, we have been fortunate to have worked on various projects with Slam Academy, with Millie and her team, as well as other affiliated schools, the Matter Brickell School that was mentioned earlier, as well as the Slam Academies in the city of Miami, and other schools. But before I get into the details that you see on screen in terms of what the intended repairs and restoration efforts must be in order for this to work, I do want to say, and I believe he's on the call, I want to underscore that the real heavy lifting to this point on this project in terms of the restoration work that needs to be done has been done by Richard Heisenbottle and his team, project manager Stephanie Michelle and others that have been working on plans that are currently routing through the city of Miami's building department. In fact, some of which, those plans, a significant amount of departments have already signed off on those working drawings. It's an incredible set of plans, about 225 sheets of drawings, covering what you see before you and other things that you'll see in a second that I'll talk about. There are a couple of ways to understand what this scope entails. And I know that Richard's on the call, and so, you know, if I miss anything, but I think I pretty much have this right. And that is that, first and foremost, there are interior repairs that need to be made. These include the reconstruction of the demolished the dressing rooms and crew rooms. There's re-roofing, which is really more of an exterior work, but re-roofing, decorative paint and plaster repairs. It's important to note that these repairs and restoration of decorative paint was done in 2002, but because of the recent deterioration of the roof and water penetration and so on, a lot of that was done back in 2002, now 20-something years later, has to be redone. Importantly also, there are significant structural repairs that need to be made to a small section of the building that has to do with the air conditioning units that would be the new air conditioning units that have to be replaced to run the facility. So the MEP, meaning mechanical, electrical, plumbing retrofit, structural repairs, electrical upgrades, fire alarm upgrades, fire protection revisions, and miscellaneous architectural restoration and repairs. All of this under the umbrella that was mentioned earlier regarding the 40-year recertification. That 40-year recertification is the big driver of all of these repairs. There's the historic preservation proper aspects of the project, but there's also this sort of overarching requirement to bring the building into compliance with the 40-year recertification. Part of that includes exterior repairs. In the picture that you see there, you see the urban umbrella product that is has been applied to the east and north facades of the building, which are protecting the sidewalk. That is because there are certain aspects of the facade that need to be repaired, both on the east side and the north side primarily, the terracotta and the brick facade, but also on the other four sides, if you will, of the building. There's also replacement of all windows, entrance doors and ornamental frames, exterior repairs and restoration of the ornamental iron railings, replication and restoration of ornamental terracotta, that facade brick that I mentioned, the stucco, and the restoration of the Flagler Street marquee and repairs to the ticket booth. All of that scope is in Richard Heisenbottle's plans that are, as I said earlier, routing themselves through the building department at the city of Miami as we speak. And as I said, there's been a handful, if not more than a handful, of departments that have already signed up, fire, building in some cases, public works, and so on. There's a few others of a project of this nature and magnitude that have generated additional comments, and I think RJH and team are responding to those comments as we speak. Next is, I think there's another page. Is there, can you go forward? Well, before this component of it, I should say that there's another part of this project that is not covered by the plan, the scope that is in the Heisenbottle plans. That scope, as been mentioned earlier, constitutes these interior and exterior repairs, constitutes about $30 million worth of work based on estimates produced by Mr. Heisenbottle and his team. So that's what we're working under. We have those estimates, we have the plans, we are following them closely. And as I said, the heavy lifting of this has been done by Richard. We hope to continue a collaborative effort with Richard as we move forward to make sure that as we do what needs to be done to bring the school on site and the tower, that is done with great care and with great deference to what is in Richard's plans regarding the restoration and preserving the ability of this building to continue to call itself worthy of the historic designation that it has. That's what we pledged to the project, and we're looking forward to working with, frankly, the most renowned restoration architect probably in the country, certainly in Florida and many other parts. So next, so again, another part of that, beyond the $30 million investment, is what needs to be done to the tower, to the storefronts, to do that, to bring to the site the programs that Fernando mentioned earlier that are related to the academic deliverables of SLAM and the Innovation Academy and all of the other affiliated schools. That restoration is exclusively internal. It's internal to the storefronts because the actual storefronts themselves are also protected and are very much present in Richard's plans. So there's certain things you can and cannot do to those storefronts. But also the tower, the exterior of the tower remains unchanged. The windows get replaced, the brick gets repaired, the terracotta gets repaired as well. But the inside, it's just like the idea that was floated around for a boutique hotel. The inside is where we could then go to work with regards to creating a proper environment in this building for the educational programs to be delivered. So that is a significant portion as well beyond the cost involved in related to the scope that you have now in those plans that Mr. Heisenbottle's office has prepared. And I think now to go to the next page, and I think I'll turn it over back to Miriam, but we understand that the conveyance of this brings with it a series of conditions that Miriam will get into related to the facility. So I'm happy to answer any questions anyone may have later or any questions that are raised. I'll be available.
Thank you, Rolando. Miriam, do you want to cover the?
Absolutely. So yes, it's very important to understand that this is not being conveyed by the city of Miami without any strings. The city's conveyance will have a reverter provision, which basically says that the city can call back the property should the use change from an educational and cultural use, or should SLAM not restore the facility to the degree that has been agreed and in the time period that has been agreed. So they must continuously comply with both of those things in order to continue to keep the property. And finally, the property has to have public access for programming, both from the community and as well as the college. So all of those things will continue to keep the property as is expected, and importantly, and as we said at the beginning, not with one taxpayer dollar being invested in this process.
Thank you. Okay, now we're going to kind of go through this quickly. I know you've heard a lot about the groups that are involved, but I want to just kind of clarify that. Okay, I'm just going to break for 1 second. I'm being told we are going to switch over to another panelist because I know you're getting our screen is a little blurry. Again, we had a storm here. We're trying to weather the storm and make sure that you're seeing this in the best view possible. Okay, so if we can go to the next slide. Okay, so this is kind of the group SLAM. We're collaborating with these local educational nonprofits, as Fernando nonprofits include Matter Innovation Academy down the street, in partnership again with Miami-Dade College. Matter Brickell Academy, which I see Doug is on the call, who's the principal overseeing that program, and one of our other sister schools, Somerset Academy. And again, we as a network, collaborative with schools, these organizations have over $170 million that we received in grants, both from the U.S. Department of Education and for the expansion of our programs. And why? Because they are high-performing quality programs that have proven to get results. And so that's what we're bringing, you know, to accent what's happening at the theater. And again, it's two separate programs that are going to work together cohesively to make sure that that theater is sustainable and stays in the community for generations to come. The next slide, please. Okay, so who is this group? And I'm going to go through this quickly because I think Tim really, I want to bring him over to SLAM. He had some great things to say about SLAM. But some of you may not know that aside from us, we're a nonprofit education organization. We operate charter schools around the country, but particularly we've been in the city of Miami since 2012. Actually, that facility that you see there, the SLAM facility, which is 2 7-story buildings adjoined by a bridge overlooking Marlins Park, which is another great partner of ours. That facility was one of the first under Miami 21 to renovate the area in Little Havana. And SLAM stands for Sports Leadership, Arts, and Management. The A is actually not just our letter grade, it's an A performing school, but the A is for the arts. So we do have performing arts programs. We're actually, one of our partners is the Latin Grammys Cultural Foundation, and we work with our music programs. We have national championship dance teams, and again, we work very closely with the community, whether it's the Heat, they're actually there right now running camps out of our facilities. So we've been a public steward in the city of Miami since 2012, so for over a decade. And I think that also allows us to be positioned, because we've been doing this and we've been managing these programs, we're able to do this at no cost to taxpayers and no investment from the city for this project. And I think that's different than what you've seen with these other ideas. Next slide, please. Okay, and one of those programs, just to give you an example, is SLAM Radio, where it's housed in Little Havana. It's a school, but it's actually licensed. It's a separate entity on its own. It's licensed under our foundation. It's a hub for innovation, and it is the first and only satellite radio station in the country that's run by high school students. And it works out of a school, independent of a school, but it's a cohesive program that works together. You can go to the next slide. Okay, it broadcasts, for those of you that have Sirius XM, on channel 145, again, out of Little Havana. And what it does is it gives our students the opportunity to gain on-the-job skills in media production, communications, journalism, and the arts. The students are graduating out of high school. They're being offered jobs like at ESPN. One of our former station managers got hired while he's still going to school, but he got hired by ESPN. And we've been able to, over the years, establish these partnerships with entities, and I think Tim mentioned it, with NBC Universal, Telemundo Academy, Comcast, NBC Universal, Telemundo. Our students have been on Radio Row. They've covered 2 Super Bowls. They've been featured on Good Morning America, The Today Show, The Tonight Show, you name it. And we've been managing the station since its inception. We just got a renewal from Sirius XM for the station. So again, these are highly hands-on programming, and we're experts at that. Can you go to the next slide? Our other partners, as Fernanda mentioned, is the Matter Innovation Academy down the street. And Matter Academy, who has been in the community and in the city of Miami since 1998, developed the school in partnership with Miami-Dade College, again, who's been downtown for decades, right? Been one of the first educational partners to go into downtown and renovate and really revitalize that area. So they will provide students with classrooms at the building for the technology and arts part of the programming. Can you go to the next slide, please? Okay, Miami-Dade College, again, will serve as our higher ed partner. They will provide the dual enrollment programming to allow these high school students that will be working through this inhabitants of this campus to earn college credit at MDC. And again, the theater will be available, it will be a venue for the arts and cultural programming, including some of the ceremonies, the performances, the exhibitions that you've seen at Miami-Dade College. And some of these include that film festival, the book fair, and things that have traditionally existed in the theater's activation.
Millie, before you go off of that slide, Mary Ann Borrego is online. She is vice president at Miami-Dade College, and so this might be a good time to get her statement. You're on mute, Mary Ann.
No problem. Hi, everyone. Yeah, we're very excited to continue to partner with Academica. We have a long-standing partnership with the city of Miami and Academica with their charter schools, and I think that us bringing together arts and culture to the area is going to be really an extension of the great work that the college does. I think just like we shared earlier today on a call we had, it's really, I think, a great kind of marriage between the work that we do at the college and the great work that Academic does at Olympia. The college has a long history doing graduations, our film festival, our book fair there, and we're looking forward to continuing to work with Julio.
And thank you, we're excited as well, Miriam, thank you so much. You can go to the next slide. I just want to clarify, again, this is the programming that's going to continue, right, at the theater. It's traditionally, Miami-Dade has had programming there, like such events as the film festival, but it's not the only programming. And so I want to kind of address that the fact is the theater will remain a theater. I don't know how else to stress it. That is our goal. We have an aligned mission in that the theater will be restored. We will continue to operate in the manner it has historically. What we're doing is activating and being able to bring more community partners into that space. So the programming will still include community and cultural and arts events, weekly cultural activations, and we look, all of you that are on the call, I mean, this is kind of a call to arms in the sense of you have programming, you want to be part of this initiative. That is our goal, to create this committee that is going to help manage and run the programming at the theater. Again, it is not going to be this, we're not converting it to a school, and I think that needs to be very, very clear. There is a 10-story facility, the tower that's adjoining the theater, and so this will be a cohesive program. So if you can picture students, if we can go to the next slide. If you can picture students actually working in the theater, maybe they're ushers, maybe they're running internship programs, maybe these are college students that are going to be future musicians and performers, and they're working alongside professionals in running some of these shows in the evening. You know, our school programming runs during the day, and it doesn't, you know, necessarily, a school doesn't run every day. It runs 180 days of the school year. So we are committed as a collaboration here to be able to run programming at the theater, at least 180 calendar days of cultural programming at the theater. So I just want to clarify that for anyone that thinks that it was just going to be school programming. You can go on to the next one. And so I'm going to call Tony Mesa, our SLAM Inc. Vice Chair, to kind of share with you what that looks like. What does the theater programming and management plan look like?
So this is one of the things that, like Millian mentioned, that we're really excited about, because we feel like there's been a little bit of misinformation or maybe confusion with respect to what the theater is going to be used for. And just to reiterate Millie's point, our purpose and our goal and what we're committed to is continuing to use it as it has been historically. And I think, as we all know, because everyone on this call cares deeply about the theater, so we probably all know this. The Olympia Theater facility, it sits at the cultural and historic part of downtown Miami. And it's 4 street-facing storefronts. You know, we all know 3 along Flagler Street, and then you have the one at the prominent corner of 2nd Avenue. It offers an opportunity to bring vibrant, youth-driven, and community-centered life to the streetscape, which is lacking right now. That's what we need, and that's what we bring to the table in part. Each space, and this is interesting, each space will be designed to provide real-world learning experiences while energizing the neighborhood. And as we can see here on the slide that we see before us, and maybe it's not to beat a dead horse, but some of our collaboration with community partners and our local partnerships, we see in there We have successful partnerships with them. Historically, we have a strong track record with them, and they bring a lot to the table, and we bring a lot to the table because of our relationships with them, and it's what makes this proposal so unique. We see here Telemundo Academy in partnership with Comcast, the soundstage with LED backdrops for film production, the Verizon Foundation Innovation Lab, Slam Radio we already discussed, and the recurring live events and festivals and international broadcasts. That's part of the theater programming and management plan. If we could please have the next slide. So I think it begs the question, this whole conversation kind of begs the question, so how's the theater going to be managed? And management's going to be under the same structure of the proposed project. And this was discussed earlier by some of the panelists. The ERA Foundation, which is going to be critical, it's a nonprofit collaboration that will facilitate the management through a theater programming committee with stakeholders and partners managing the calendar of events. And again, to reiterate, we are committing to 180 days of activations at a minimum. That's the minimum, and part of this proposal is that commitment to activate for 180 calendar days. As we can see here, the theater in the building will be operated under Florida law governing the public charter school cooperatives with public oversight via use restrictions, open access programming, and community programming guaranteed through institutional agreements. If we could please have the next slide. This is, I think, one of the most unique aspects of the proposal and something we are very excited about. And it's the design of the school building program. Again, a lot of the focus has been saving the theater, and that's everyone's core mission, and I think everyone's aligned on that. What's so unique about this proposal is that we are giving equal service to the 10-story building. And the adjoining building, it's going to hub the educational uses. Students will be offered internship and work-study opportunities to help support the arts and cultural programming at the theater. The building will serve as an educational incubator and development hub for the latest arts and media technology and innovation. And as we've heard before and earlier this evening, MPC will serve as a higher educational partner. They're going to provide dual enrollment and career technical education, allowing eligible high school students to earn college credits. These include specialized academic and career pathways in arts, digital media, performance, and technology-related fields.
And I think one of the things we want to kind of point out is that this committee is not like it's set in stone right now. This committee is what we're hoping is after this meeting and after this call that there are people on this call that are representing the community and the community in Miami, the cultural and arts community, and want to be part of this process. So the idea is that this committee that will be formed, right, under this nonprofit initiative will actually involve you. Those of you who are there, you're going to see on our screen, because I know we want to get to some questions, you're going to see on the next slide.
And part of that conversation is this is a dialogue. The purpose of today and this committee is to work because everyone is aligned on this same mission, and we hope that everyone's going to have input, and that's what our expectation is, and that's what our desire with respect to these committees and what we want to be seeing at the theater. That's part of an ongoing conversation, an ongoing dialogue that I think we're starting today. I think in conclusion, and before we get to the question and answer session, is what the theme that runs through all of this is at the core of what we heard Rolando speak about with respect to the extensive repairs, the extensive restoration, what we heard about the enormous financial commitment that Miriam mentioned, $30 million, $50 million, not one part of which, not one penny will come from the city or come from any taxpayer. At the core of that is the shared mission that we have to save the theater. And that's what our goal is. That's what we are seeking to accomplish. That's what we're committed to doing. And we know that if we're granted the opportunity to do so, we will be able to save the theater in a very unique way. And it ties into, this was mentioned earlier, but I believe it's so significant that it bears repeating. For the first time in its 100-year history, that's a century, both the theater and the adjoining 10-story building will operate synergistically as a cohesive unit, and that cannot be understated or underemphasized. That's critical to this proposal and to its success. The school will serve as the driving engine to energize the programming and operation of the theater. And what this allows is to build a pipeline of artists, professionals, which ensures that the preservation of the Olympia Theater for future generations. And that's what we mean when we started this, and we see it all on our screen. Preservation with a purpose. We end it the same way. Preservation with a purpose. That's what we seek to accomplish and what we will be able to accomplish if we're given the opportunity. Thank you, everyone, for your time. Millie?
I just want to share that if you do have a proposal or anything you'd like to see for that programming piece, please reach out, because that's our goal. Our goal is to work together in the community and be able to put something forth, working with the city, working with, again, a collaboration of educational partners, but also working with these cultural groups in the community that, either have events or are looking forward to showcasing events for the programming of the theater so that it belongs to the community. So, I know that we want to get into the Q&A.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Millie.
the last thing I would add on behalf of the college, I think we're committed to continue to work with community partners, the arts and cultural community, to continue to be able to create robust programming at Olympia.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mariam.
Thank you, Mariam. So, Commissioner, thank you again for hosting this. And now, how do you want to proceed with the Q&A, Commissioner?
Well, first I want to say we had lots and lots of questions. A lot of them were already answered. So we have a sampling of questions that Alex is going to go through for you guys to answer. Okay. But I want to state that we are going to have a website available where these plans for the actual renovation of the theater, the Heisenbottle documents, we're going to try to put them online. We're going to have most of the questions that seem to be repeated and that people want to know. We're going to try to put those as well as the presentation and anything else we think is relevant as we go along in this process. So if you want to reach, we put an email in the chat for specific questions. If it has not been answered, certainly reach us as well at district2, the number 2, at miamigov.com. And then Alex, I'll let you go ahead and start with the questions.
Sure.
Thank you.
So I apologize if some of these are redundant, but they are the most popular ones. So perhaps more detail or a refresher would be helpful. One of these is the basic idea for traffic drop-off and pickup. As the school grows, where will all of those parking spaces be accommodated, and how will that impact traffic in the area? So I'm going to preface this, I'm going to throw it at one of my team members, but I want to preface this with saying, like, we've been managing schools in urban areas, including, and I know Doug is on the call, we've been working, whether it's Slam or Matter of Brickell, in the heart of the financial district of Brickell. We have done, I think, an amazing job of being able to control patterns. We're also, when you think of an urban area, you also see that students are using that public transportation. They're walking, like at Slam, a lot of the students are coming in, and we do staggered dismissals, and we can turn that around. But I do want to have, if Rolando wants to chime in terms of the parking structure and what some of those plans may look like.
And
yeah, absolutely.
Before, Rolando, just one second, just real quick, because Principal Rodriguez is here, and he does this every day in Matter Brickell. And so I wanted to hear from him, and then Rolando, you can give the technical response, but I want Principal Rodriguez to give the true operations in the city of Miami and how you're handling it now, sir.
Thank you. Appreciate it, and good evening to all of the community members and to all of our panelists. Thank you for having me. As I said, my name is Douglas Rodriguez. I'm the principal of Matter Brickell Academy, in addition to Miami Tech. And have worked certainly with Miami-Dade College. So one of the first things we do when we look at this, we look at traffic patterns by conducting a traffic study of the area. We also look at the locations where our students come from. So we do have clusters of areas where students apply and come to the school. We track that information. What we've done in the past to alleviate traffic is we've actually sent out buses that the school pays for into certain areas of the city in order to pick up students to bring them. So instead of having 30 or 40 cars come in, or 50 or 60, we'll have one bus that comes in and drops off students. As Millie said at the beginning, we stagger times between high school and middle school. So we'll stagger times for the entry of students and the exit of students so that there's less of a burden on the traffic pattern in the community. In addition to that, we encourage our students to use public transportation. In Brickell, for example, we have many students that use green transportation. They'll use scooters, they'll use bikes, and they'll use other methods. So we do try to get as many students who are close to the school to use those options. We'll also provide passes to students to use Metro Mover, to use the public bus system. So through a series of all of those kinds of things that we do, we end up with what we think is a pretty stable traffic pattern that doesn't put an undue burden on the residents in the city.
Thank you, Doug. Rolando?
Yeah, well, I think Principal Rodriguez actually gave us a pretty good technical answer in addition to the day-to-day, but it's aligned really with how we approach the design and the planning of these schools in the urban core. We've done a handful of them already, all within the city of Miami, all under the umbrella of Miami 21, post Miami 21. So they all comply. They all have been analyzed from the traffic point of view. But as Mr. Rodriguez said, there are multiple ways in which these schools, and the more urban that they get, the more dense that they are within a particular area, actually the more possibilities there are for moving folks around and for getting to and from the school. I will say this, that we were encouraged by the fact that the city of Miami is at the forefront of promoting public transit and alternative ways of accessing work, school, and housing. And so we're riding the coattails of this movement that the city has taken on, if you will, not just recently, but for years, in looking at the code, and looking at housing, and looking at parking, and even traffic in general. So we feel, as others that have done schools in the urban core, not just ourselves, but that embracing that leads to more and more folks and students and staff using alternative means, beyond conventional means, to access the site. So we're encouraged by the fact that the placement of this school and facility, where it is perfectly situated to take advantage of what the city of Miami has already begun with regards to, as I said, alternative means of moving around town. In addition to the fact that there are significant amount of public parking options in the urban core. I mean, to the thousands and thousands of spaces, obviously used on a daily basis by folks that work there, but also by folks that go to school there. So we're encouraged by that, and we feel that we can develop a good plan. And with the leadership of Principal Rodriguez, who's been at this for quite some time now, we feel very confident that it will pay dividends.
Thank you, Rolando. Thank you, Doug. Alex?
Yeah,
Next question.
By the way, we have a lot of questions, so we're going to try to speed it along as much as possible. Go ahead, Alex.
But actually, when they explain it, answers all
Go
the
ahead.
Anyway.
Don't need that. We're going to be late.
On that note, how many students and staff total number are planned for the school?
So we who's going to take that up?
I'll take it. Go ahead.
I'll take it. So we base it on state statute, bases it on the occupancy load of the building, right? And so we will be calculating that once we do all the redevelopment, all the on the 10-story building, all of the upgrades that we have to do there. We figure out how classroom space, lab space, obviously we'll come up with a number, and then we have to make it work for our traffic operation plan, as Doug and Rolando stated. So that's a work in progress because we don't have the plans yet for the 10-story office building. Rolando, you wanted to add to that?
No, it's aligned with what you said. We're about to begin, hopefully once all of this settles, is an extensive work with Millie and her team and the team at SLAM and with Doug to help, as they craft their curriculum and their program, that we begin to help them design the interiors really of this of the vertical structure. So once that starts to happen, and once they start giving us parameters for what types of spaces that they need to make the academics work, I think the issue of the population will begin to flesh itself out.
And Alex and Commissioner, as we spoke in our earlier call today with some of the community stakeholders, this is a phased, ramped up, right? This doesn't happen overnight. This gets phased over time. We add grades as the school grows. So it is a slow but deliberate ramp up of the school. Okay.
I mean,
if student population.
And if I can interject, you have a theater there that currently has, I believe, 1,700 seats.
Seats, yeah.
And it had as many as 2,000 at some points in time. We're not looking at that many students in a facility, but clearly that's a facility that will be expected to handle that many folks when it operates in its capacity as a theater. And we probably will begin south of 100 or so students in the beginning year, and then grow as we see the demand grow and as the building gets developed. But keep in mind that that facility, not even counting the building next door, is expected to handle. We need to look at that, right? Because when there are events there, when there are concerts, when there are performances, you can handle more than 2,000 folks at a time. The advantage, like Rolando mentioned, we're in an urban location, so the students don't need to be dropped off at the front of the theater. These are students who are more than capable of walking to and from where they go to school, and they can be dropped off in other designated locations throughout the downtown area, over at the park. So there's multiple locations where we can accept pickup and drop off and organize that, and actually helps make those areas safer because we provide security wherever we do have pickup and drop off.
Yeah, and Fernando, I think you forget with our partnership, there'll be parking also available. And when we've leased out Olympia recently for the film festival, we've been able to provide parking. We've been able to provide shuttle service. So I think that the proximity that the college has with parking garages and parking spaces, I think through this partnership, we'll be able to help alleviate some of the concern that I understand the residents may have about parking and traffic issues on Flagler and going to Olympia.
That is
great point.
That is a brilliant point, Miriam. I can't expect anything less from the college. Miriam.
Go ahead, Alex.
Thank you. So the clauses of the contract, maybe this is a question for the city manager. What are the criteria for this contract to happen? When will it become available? And why is the format as it is? What covenants are going to be attached? Why is it not a 99-year lease? Why not another RFP? Why is the process the way that it is?
Well, that's a pretty long-winded question there. So there's a lot of nuance to this, right? So the purchase and sale agreement is still being finalized. It's not final yet. It's getting pretty close to being final. The resolution that would go before the commission would authorize my office to enter into the PSA. The purchase sale agreement will have a number of exhibits to it, one of which will be the scope of work. There's some financial due diligence that will also be attached, as well as there are specific sections and articles within the purchase and sale agreement that will identify some of that reverter language that we've talked about, right, with regards to the use, with regards to the scope of work being finalized within a certain time period. And the reason why we don't do an RFP is because we've gone through that process already. We've had a number of, and it was highlighted so eloquently earlier in the discussion, had a lot of proposals presented to us, ultimately none of which we were able to finalize, in part because of the financial limitations to those proposals, right? And what in essence is the financial obligation in terms of restoration. So in the end, we're trying to identify a means by which, and the charter and the code allow for it, and this particular proposal came to us more organic than anything else through the mayor, and as a result, We're trying to facilitate a much more reasonable timeline, I think, to get the building activated and get the work initiated. The longer we wait, the more costs increase in terms of the restoration, and the longer the building and more considerable the building continues to deteriorate. So that gives you a sense of timing and the why. I don't know that there really is anything that we have tried in the past through various iterations that really has been successful. I've been in some way, shape, or form connected to this building for 30 plus years, and this is legitimately the first real opportunity we have to find a long-term, reasonable solution and steward for the building. And I think that we'd be absolutely crazy to look past this opportunity. And I quite frankly think if we don't take advantage of it, we may reflect back 5-10 years from now and really regret the decision not to do it, because I think we'll be in exactly that same sort of nebulous area that we've been in for the last 2 decades. So that gives you a little background.
And Mr. Manager, why are we giving the title as opposed to a lease?
The title really, from a standpoint of the ability to raise money, and I'll let them speak to if they want to ask context to it. If you want to finance this, having fee simple title really has much better access to capital and the ability to finance the improvements. And I think from a standpoint of a lease versus fee simple ownership, I think we need to put it in the stewards, in the hands of an entity that can actually execute this. And fee simple with a reverter really just makes a lot more sense in terms of their ability to manage it and do so in a fiscally responsible way versus a lease. And I think it's a lot simpler and easier for the city to manage it that way.
So
you got the right points, Mr. Manager. It makes it
those are correct.
Financeable, number one, and you're doing a fee. You're doing a quit claim fee simple conveyance, so you're not making any representations. You're not warranting title even, and you're giving it with strings attached, like you mentioned. It's got conditions and strings attached with a reverter provision, so it goes right back to the city if we fail to do any of the things that we're committing to do, in not only now but in perpetuity. So I mean, I think that essentially accomplishes the same thing.
Without any taxpayer dollars, without any City of Miami dollars connected in any way, shape, or form, not coming back and asking for any type of abatement, not coming back and looking for any dollars that are being provided by the taxpayers or the city. Even the reverter clause that the manager has put in there, I was questioned, right? I was questioned by the banking, financing, how would that work? And so we needed to explain that. They understand it, why it's there, and they've signed off on it. So even to that point, today I had a question about that language. So I think it's correctly formed, and definitely, again, because we're not asking for any dollars from the city, the fee simple makes it a lot easier. The reverter clause protects the city.
Thank you very much. Another question is about the breakdown between the school use and public use. So will the school have exclusive access to the theater for a certain portion of time during the week or during the year? And how many days do you foresee for it to be open to public use or other activations?
And so again, the school will function, there's a 10-story building we discussed, and obviously there isn't a set calendar now to say the school is going to use the theater this time during the day at exactly 8 a.m. in the morning. But again, the main focus here is that the theater can function and offer these cultural events. So if, for example, the theater is being used for a film festival or a book fair, there's not going to be usage by the school. The school will function in the building. What I want everybody to understand is that what we're doing in the school building is going to complement the activities that are happening in the theater. Whether it's students doing internships, whether it's Miami-Dade College classical students shadowing, and again, to give you a clear picture, when Slam Miami opened, together and running the concession, dealing with and learning the business of running and managing a theater. So if you think about it that way, if our students are in the theater, there's a performance, they're learning about and maybe working the equipment like we do at the radio station right now with our programming. So again, it's not like we're gonna say, okay, the school's gonna occupy the theater and you cannot rent it, you cannot, that's not the goal. The goal is to be able to provide full programming of the theater, but using the school and the tower and the 10-story facility as the engine that's driving what's happening. And these two things are gonna work together, and that hasn't been seen. So for example, if you're running a hotel out of the tower and then you have an independent theater, the hotel is for tourists, the hotel is for, it's not for the community. So those things don't kind of go together. So I don't believe, Julio, can you correct me on the resolution? We're committing to a minimum day in terms of programming, right? It's 180 days minimum that we're putting in the resolution in terms of programming for the community, not programming that there's a parent show or there's a school show. And I want to be clear because I know a lot of people are saying,
We're gonna activate, we're committing to activating, we're activating the theater for no less than 180 days. We hope that it's more by you putting out the call that SLAM has put out to ask community partners, those who want to collaborate, to come forward and bring their plans. We hope it's more than 180 days. But we heard loud and clear from the commission that they wanted to understand, how many days the theater was going to be activated, available for the public, and that's why we've changed the resolution to add those days on there. And we also included, obviously, the total investment that we have planned right now, which comes from Richard Heisenbottle's estimate and what his team did, which is about $29 million, $30 million. There's about another $1.5, $2 million that we're going to invest in the storefronts that Fernando discussed about the radio station and the other 3 storefronts. And there's about $23 million to do just the inside of the 10-story building to retrofit it by level to classroom space. So that's the investment, and the commission also asked and wanted to know and wanted a timeline. So we have less than 5 years. Obviously, we want to do it much quicker, and obviously we've asked the city to help us with the permits. Mr. Heisenbottle's plans are already in the city, as we have heard. They're going through now, I think, the 2nd or 3rd comments. His team is working diligently to get that done. And Rolando's team, as soon as we get the okay from the commission, Rolando's team will start working on the plans for the inside of the 10-story building for the classroom. So there's a plan. We have a plan to energize and activate. And as we discussed earlier, the idea, and Marianne, who from the college wanted to know, we plan to do all this while the theater is active. You heard from Fernando, we want to get this radio station going now. So we don't want to waste any time. We want to do it and energize as we go the theater, and then obviously the classroom building next door.
Thank you very much. On that note, is there any component of the historical preservation that could delay you? And has Academica done any historical preservation in the past?
We went one better. We took the man who's been working on it for 30 plus years and asked him to be part of this team. We took the plans that he has worked on for the city as the consultant to the city. We made 0 changes. We said, those are the plans. That's what we're moving forward with. And so that's what's going through the process. But Richard, you're on the call. Who better than you to give that answer?
Well, let me as far as historic preservation, I was involved early on, more than 20 some years ago, with our chief general contractor at our organization. Mike Belais was the contractor when we did Firehouse 4 over at the Brickell corridor. That was one of the oldest firehouses in Miami. That was repurposed, remodeled, and I was intimately involved in that project. And that's still to this day, to my knowledge, still Firehouse is still operating and it was repurposed as a restaurant at the time. It was not an insubstantial job. It was significant. It included every element of the restoration process for an historic building. And I think that was one of the first ones I did. I've done many others, but that was back dating, I mean, you can look up the records. You guys are better than I am at that, but that was close to 30 years ago, probably 25, 20 some, 30 years ago. So yeah, I've remodeled historic buildings in the city of Miami, just down the street from where this one's located. Happy to do this one as well. And if anybody has a doubt, because I've seen some posts up there of like, hey, do these guys, I already said it at the outset, these schools have the financing in place, the capacity to do this. This is not, we're going to go out and get financing. We're not doing that. We're telling you, these schools have it. Go verify it. It's public. You'll see the Matter Academy, Somerset Academy, and Slam collectively have much more capital, you know, more capacity, financial capacity to do a job like this one.
Thank you. Another question is about the impact.
Wait.
Oh, sorry.
You wanted Richard to say something, Alex?
Sure, please.
Richard?
Give me just a moment. I want to thank Rolando earlier for the gracious introduction. Let everybody know that the actual start date for the work that over the years we've done on the Olympia was 1989. And so we're proud to still be shepherding this project and making sure this theater is saved. I can assure everybody on the call that we have gone through in great detail with an assessment report that we did for the city, for the city manager at his request. That assessment report has built the program for the restoration. It was reviewed by city staff, and as was said by everyone from the SLAM organization here, you know, this is the budgets have been very accurately estimated. They understand what they're getting into, and I'm glad to see that they have the financial capability to make this finally happen. So thanks to everybody. Thanks for having us as part of your team, and we look forward to moving forward.
Perfect.
Thank you very much. Another question is about the impact it will have on the street. So how is the school designation going to impact bars, restaurants, and clubs around the Flagler district?
So I'm going to have Miriam answer that.
Good evening again, everyone. So there are methods by which any commission, and certainly the commission of the city of Miami, can look at a particular circumstance and determine that a waiver is appropriate for a regulation that could impact that. And we have every reason to believe that that's what would happen in this case. That's not something to be worried about.
And our teachers want those establishments to continue. We can have events there.
Thank you. The last couple of questions are about the previous RFP, why we won't issue another one, and what was the city's contribution proposed in the past? So maybe that's a question for the manager.
Yeah, I mean, I'll restate what I said earlier with regards to issuing another RFP. I mean, we can kind of keep going down the same rabbit hole again as it relates to RFPs. Without the financial resources, and that's been pretty consistent in every conversation I've had with anyone that's taken